Great. Welcome everyone to the July Dependency-Track community meeting. So as always, I will start with a couple logistics. This meeting is being recorded and we'll be uploading it to YouTube in about a day. The slides are available. We usually post it to the chat, so that'll be done soon. And we will have a Q&A section at the end, but there might be a couple minutes in between each section where we can answer some questions if there's time available. So let's go to the agenda. So first we'll go over the project updates, and then next we'll talk about the experiences from the recent conference, Global Apsec EU, and then we'll go over some demos of Dependency-Track, and then we'll go over the recent announcement of the Ecma standard of CycloneDX 1.6, and then we'll go into a general Q&A. So for project updates, first I'll turn it over to Nicholas.
Thanks so much, Caroline. Yep, I will try to keep this short and crisp. Essentially, the project updates are we released version 4.11.4 and 4.11.5 recently, or since the last community meeting. Version 0.4 was released on June 24th, and it fixed an XXE vulnerability. Can you believe it? A security tool with security holes, would have thought. But yeah, this fixed. It is not a critical vulnerability. We rated it as a medium. There are a few preconditions that there have to be for this to be actually exploitable. Please refer to the GHSA and to the CVE that we created or that we published. But if you are in a lower version, please do update. And also, if you use the CycloneDX Java library in your own projects, it also had an XXE vulnerability. So please, if you use that, also update to the latest version to be safe, essentially. And because we needed to fix this XXE vulnerability, and this XXE vulnerability was fixed in a version of the CycloneDX library that supported CycloneDX version 1.6, by accident, Dependency-Track now also supports version 1.6 of CycloneDX. Which was originally planned for a later version of Dependency-Track. Also, we got some nice contributions for the translation for both Chinese and German, which was very much appreciated. And then the recent release from 2 days ago, version 4.11.5, sorry, that was mostly for an issue with the NVD mirroring via REST API. So as you may know, the NVD has deprecated the file-based mirroring approach that we have historically used. And they want all the users to migrate to the API-based mirroring, but that API-based mirroring has been unstable, to say it politically correct. And then, due to various factors recently, the mirroring entirely broke for everyone using it. So if you are on a version lower than 4.11.5 right now, and you use NVD mirroring via REST API, please do upgrade, because otherwise you will not get new CVEs. If you cannot upgrade immediately, you can still enable or disable the mirroring via REST API. In that case, you will use the file-based mirroring again, which is deprecated, but it still works. And you should get the same data as well. It has proven to be a little bit more reliable than the REST API so far. Yep, and then also we backported a few bug fixes from the in-progress version 4.12.0. We try to do this every time we release a bug fix version. We look into how many, or if we already fixed other like smaller non-critical bugs in the current master branch, and then we backport them as we see fit. And again, here we did the same, and a few bugs got fixed in those releases as well. Now we have some time constraints with Aravind, who will talk about the Global Apsec EU experience. Or Niklas also joined. Hey, so we will do the Global Apsec EU next before we go to the demos. So I will hand over to Aravind.
Thanks, Nicholas. So yeah, I think a couple of weeks ago, I attended Global Apsec Lisbon, and we did a presentation on Dependency-Track and fortifying the software supply chain. It was a really good turnout, and had a really nice conversations with people who are interested in operationalizing their SBOM. I realized that most of the folks over there, they're aware of SBOMs and are pushing SBOMs to Artifactory and stuff, but they still have a question on what do we do with an SBOM. So talked a little bit about SBOMs, CycloneDX, and did a couple of demos with Dependency-Track and few features of Hades as well. Thanks to Vinod and Nicholas for the help. And yeah, the presentation was heavily inspired by previous presentations by Steve and Nicholas and everyone. So yeah, it was a very good conference. I was able to attend only the last day of it, and there was a lot of emphasis on supply chain security and also on reachability analysis and stuff like that. So I highly encourage everybody to look forward to future presentations and take part in such conferences. I think Global Apsec San Francisco is coming up next, and the call for proposals are happening soon. So yeah, that's pretty much my update. Thanks.
I think Nicholas was also there, so he'll speak on his perspective with Andreas as well.
Yes, I can only agree. Was a really nice experience. It was my first time at the conference. Also had the pleasure to have a talk there. Was quite cool. The audience is very skilled, so it's a nice practice also to talk to them and see and hear the feedback. So normally I just get it from the customers, and we know that's not the same. So yeah, it was really cool. Lot of interactions with people from different domains, I would say, even if a lot of them have a security background, but still different perspective. Also the companies that were there, nice interactions, nice talks. So yeah, I can highly recommend it. Was really cool experience.
Do you maybe want to mention what you specifically talked about, or what the topic was?
Oh yeah, that's a good point. So yeah, I had the opportunity to talk about CBOM, basically related to the topic of crypto governance. I mentioned a little bit how what the vision could be to how CBOM could be used, and what problems it could solve. It was interesting. When I looked in the audience, a lot of people took pictures. So even if I posted the slides later, so it seems like I hit a point there of interest. So I hope, I don't know if there is a recording at one point of those talks available on YouTube or something. But if so, I do a little bit of advertisement on my own and say it's maybe a good opportunity to watch it. Yeah.
Alrighty, thanks so much both, especially Aravind for representing Dependency-Track, of course, very much appreciated. Thank you so much. And we are looking forward to hearing more from the CBOM side as well, Niklas. So keep us updated. Alrighty, so moving on. As Aravind already said, Global Apsec San Francisco is coming up in September, and the call for papers is already running. In fact, it is running out in 5 days or 6 days. So if you need an excuse to move to or to travel to the US, or you live there and you just want to make the conference, please consider handing something in. It doesn't have to be about Dependency-Track, but of course we would be very honored if you want to talk about Dependency-Track. Just know call for papers is already running and the conference is happening in September in San Francisco. Alrighty, then moving on to features in the upcoming 4.12 release. I'm going to preface this a little bit. It already says tag management, but you already know you can tag projects in Dependency-Track, right? And you can assign tags to policies. And in the upcoming version, you will also be able to assign tags to notifications so that only projects tagged with a certain tag will get alerted from a certain notification, right? And there are additional features that are coming that are tag related. So we, as a team, we sat together and we said, currently you cannot manage tags in Dependency-Track, right? You can create them, you can assign them, but you cannot delete them, you cannot rename them, you cannot see which tags do I have in my system. So all these additional features will get very complicated to manage if we don't provide something that provides that visibility. So that is the reason why we pulled this into 4.12, even though it was not originally planned for this version. So again, the problems that you currently have is, or the questions you probably likely have right now is what tags do I have in my system, what projects, policies, notifications are associated with those tags. You maybe want to tag projects upon SBOM upload, so you don't want to go into the UI or trigger the REST API manually, if you will. You probably want to untag projects, policies, notifications in a central place. You don't want to visit every single project and then delete the tag, go to the next project, and so on. That gets tedious very soon. And also, like, having many tags and people constantly creating tags, at some point you have a lot of bloat in your system and you don't know, like, if you cannot see them, what do you do with it? So you also want to delete tags in a central place, like literally remove them from the system. And then for automation purposes, at the moment you can tag projects, you can tag policies, but it all takes one request per project. So if you have large portfolios, this takes a lot of round trips, right? So when we built this now, we built this with bulk operations in mind. You can tag up to 100 projects at the moment in bulk. We can increase this limit if it turns out to be useful. But for now, we took it in a conservative side. And you can also untag things in bulk as well. And this untagging and tagging is atomic. So if one of the operations in this bulk failed, the entire thing will fail. The same goes for tag deletion. You can also delete or bulk delete tags via REST API. That is also possible. And as an additional gimmick or feature, the input fields that accept tags now have autocomplete. So what we observed previously is that you add tags to a project and you don't remember which tags you already have. So you mistype or you misspell certain words, and yet then you end up with tags that are essentially useless because they are different all over the system. So with the autocomplete feature, this should happen less, hopefully. I'm going to demo a bit now, so I will have to reshare my screen here. Stop sharing this one. I think this one should be it. Okay. Can you let me know if you can see the dependency track window or a dependency track window?
Yes.
Awesome.
Yep.
Alrighty, so let me just create one project here, demo version 123 with the classifier something, and I will assign the tags foo, bar, and bas. So this is all the existing functionality, right? I create this now, and I created 3 tags now. If I now create a different version of the demo project, again here, I now have autocomplete here that works with mouse and keyboard. So I don't have to manually fiddle around finding out which tags I already have. So this is the autocomplete feature. Is very, very simple, but it's worth pointing out. And then for the central tag management, there will be a new view here on the left side named tags. And it will quite literally list all the tags that you have in the system. And it will also point out how many projects, how many policies, and soon also how many notifications are assigned to this. You will notice here that where the value is greater than 0, this is a hyperlink. And when you click on that hyperlink, you will get a list of all the projects that are assigned, or all the policies, all the notifications that are assigned to that tag. You will also notice on the top right here, there's a minus button. And that button is visible to you if you have the portfolio management permission. So you are able to modify projects. So in this case, I'm just going to unassign this tag from the demo 321 project, which just has happened. If I now refresh this page, I think foo got removed. Was it? Yeah, so I removed one tag right now. And this view obviously also takes into account if you have policy or portfolio, if you have portfolio ACLs enabled. So if you are a user who cannot see all the projects, but only a certain subset of them, if you click on this link here, you will obviously only see those projects you have access to. And similarly, if there are policies assigned to a tag, you will only see those if you have the policy management permission, and you will only be able to untag policies if you have that permission as well. Now, you will also notice there are checkboxes here to the left. So you can select the tag as a whole, and you can decide to delete it. And to delete it, you need the tag management permission, which is new. With the caveats that I mentioned previously about the permissions, the same thing applies here as well. So if there is a tag and the tag is assigned to projects, you can delete that tag if you have the portfolio management permission. So you are essentially able to unassign tags from projects, right? If you don't have that permission, you cannot delete the tag. Similarly, if there are projects you cannot see, but the tag is assigned to those projects, you cannot delete the tag, even though you have the tag management permission. Same again goes for policies. If you don't have policy management permission, you cannot delete the tag. You will need someone with that permission to either go here or in another view and delete or remove the tag manually. So these are just a few restrictions just because tags are global objects, whereas everything else is kind of not global. So there are a few caveats here as to how the functionality works. But the overview itself is here. You can see if you have the corresponding permissions, you have a better overview now as to what is in your system. And again, I can maybe just select everything and delete it. So very simple functionality on the surface. What we also plan to do next is to add the ability to rename tags. And then, sorry. And then along with that, if you rename the tag to another tag that already exists, the idea would be to essentially merge them. There was an example from Mark Simons that if you have a tag that that is used to label projects based on teams or like guilds or something in your organization, and the team changes its name, right, to another thing that already exists, you should be able to just merge the tags instead of like deleting the tag and then reassigning everything. So that is also planned for the 4.12 release. In adjacent functionality, again, you will remember that in 4.11 we introduced as-BOM validation or BOM validation upon upload. And we have seen that some people or some organizations are struggling with tooling that generates invalid BOMs still. But those problems are not really global to the entire portfolio, right? So some projects validate fine, whereas others do not. And another feature we have in mind is to use tags to essentially either include or exclude certain projects from BOM validation so that you don't have to globally enable or disable the feature. You can just do it selectively based on your needs. Again, that would be easier with this tags overview as well. Yep, I think I covered everything I wanted to cover on this front. Let me just go back. If there are any questions already, I'm happy to take them. Otherwise.
There is a comment, but I don't think there's a question. Val is saying that the bulk take is helpful. It might be also needed something similar when it comes to deleting an int CVE. Yeah, so there's more details about deleting an int CVE and how it needs to be disassociated from every component and then deleted. So I think seems like a feature request around this.
Yeah, I agree. More APIs would benefit from bulk operations. Yep.
There's a question from Sean. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, Sean is asking, will there be functionality to predefine the permitted set of tags, not allowing arbitrary values? So what you want is, would that be like literally a predefined set of values, or would you want like a regex to limit how the tags could look like? What would you want here? If you can elaborate, that would be helpful.
I unmuted you, Sean, if you need to speak.
Either predefined or regex would be interesting, he writes. Don't have a clear use case in mind yet. Okay, I guess technically we can do that. So we can limit the creation of tags to a certain set of people, for example, and those users can then like pre-create the tags. That would be possible. Regex would be doable, but I would wait with implementing this until we have a good use case in mind, I would say. nothing planned, but technically possible, if that answers your question. Okay, he writes, agreed, sounds sensible. That sounds good. Okay, am I still sharing a screen? I think so, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Technology. All right, so there's another topic that we wanted to discuss. It's not technically a 4.12 feature, but it's related, and it also relates to HIEDs, the upcoming version 5 release. So one thing that is a common theme is, let me just put the use cases here. So there are certain use cases where like running multiple instances of DT is interesting. One of them would be, of course, testing version 5 of HIEDs while you are running version 4 in production. Another case would be like having a staging environment where you test new releases. So for example, you run 4.11 in production, then 4.12 is released. You are not quite sure, will this work with my data? So you have a staging area where you deploy version 4.12, and then you want to evaluate, does it work as I expect, as I need it? Or you are kind enough and you test snapshot versions of Dependency-Track, which, by the way, Mark Simons from the team has been doing since a few years, I think. And the feedback that he has provided so far is very invaluable. So he's a test. Maybe Mark, if you want to say a few words, I see you laughing.
Yeah, it's actually been about sort of 4 or 5 years that I've been successfully syncing a production dependency track with snapshots of dependency track. And due to the work that we're about to be able to release in version 4.12, what has been working sort of okay for me for years is now going to work much, much better. But in general, in terms of utility, having two systems side by side has been absolutely invaluable. It has revealed so many wrinkles in so many different areas. Okay.
Very much agreed. Thank you, Mark. Again, your input so far has been very, very helpful. Also with the text management, I got feedback from Mark like literally as soon as I pushed it to master because he was able to test it in his test system. And a lot of the input or a lot of the features that you saw are based on his feedback on how things should work. So yeah, the problems that you run into with this setup, of course, is how do you get realistic test data, for example, bombs. Like the main thing that Dependency-Track is managing are bombs. Melba, you are raising your hand.
I am. I feel like there's another use case in here that we should consider is when you have different types of access needs. As an example, let's say you have multi-tenancy, right? But in a different scenario of you have maybe one business unit using one DT versus another business unit using another DT. That's just another use case that came to mind because that's very much real for me.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, just wanted that.
Thank you. Okay, seems like Val had the same thought heading towards multi-tenancy. Yep, I think what we're going to discuss is related, but will not really solve the multi-tenancy problem, I fear. But maybe that's something for the upcoming Q&A that we can discuss further, how this can maybe help. But yeah, continuing. So how do you get realistic test data into your test system? And how do you get it at like production-like velocity? Like if you have many SBOM uploads to your production system, how can you replicate this to your test system, whatever it is? And also, how do you actually not impact the production system? For example, if you end up performing various requests against the production REST API, you will probably cause an impact on that system, and you want to avoid that if possible. So what the setup is that Mark has been using successfully for a few years now is pretty much exploiting or using the notifications in Dependency-Track. You may know that there's a bomb consumed and a bomb process notification. And the bomb consumed notification is sent before, like after the SBOM upload, but before it is synced with the database. And the bomb process notification is sent after the synchronization with the database. You can use either one of those. The cool thing about them is that the original bomb is part of the notification. So the way you can use this in this scenario here. So this screenshot has DT version 4 and DT version 5, but could just as well be version 4.11 and version 4.12. You upload a bomb to the version 4, so to the source system. Sorry, gets validated and processed. Then it emits the bomb process notification, and it's sent to Bento. And Bento is a stream processing software. It was named Benthos before. And there we use Bento to remap the notification to a bomb upload request and then send that to the target system, where again it gets validated and processed. And this is how you can very conveniently sync uploaded bombs from one system to the other, which allows you to test, hey, how is the system processing S bombs? How is the policy evaluation working, etc., etc. So I would like to demo this real quick. Again, stopping the screen share. Right, you will need to tell me if you can see the screen okay, because unfortunately I have to share the entire screen here.
Yes, we can see it.
Awesome. So for the general setup here, I have a Docker Compose setup with API server A and API server B. Pretty much standard settings, if you will. I just reduced the memory it's going to take. And then there's Bento, which is the software I just talked about, the middleware, and two front ends. And Bento is given a configuration file. And this configuration file, it's essentially a pipeline of input, processing, and output. And the way this is done here is it defines an input of HTTP server, which will open an endpoint at /notification/bomb processed. It will allow post requests and respond with a 202 response to everything. Then whatever is sent here will be mapped to a JSON object. So the input is a JSON notification. And you can see here we are building a new JSON object. Root refers to the root object of the JSON. We set the project name based on the notification content. We do the same for the version. And as of version 4.12, you will also be able to set tags in the SBOM upload request. And we make use of that here as well. So we just remap the tags from notification again to the bomb upload request. Then the actual bomb, the same thing. And we set the auto create flag to true so that projects that don't already exist in the target system get created while this is happening. And then the output is just a normal HTTP client, which sends a put request to the destination system, to the /API/v1/bomb endpoint, sets the API key, sets the content type, and that's pretty much it. It's like a very simple setup. So I have this running already, and I have prepared a request here. It looks a bit ugly because it's like form data. It could be JSON, but I chose this one for whatever reason. So again, here I'm going to upload a bomb from bomb.json. And this is, as it so happens, a bomb of Dependency-Track itself. And I'm setting the project name to demo, the version to 6.6.6. And I'm setting 3 tags again, foobar bas, and I set autocreate to true. Now, if we, oh, too many windows here. I have 2 dependency-track systems running. This one is the one I used for the tag demo. Let me just remove these projects here to make it clean. Right, so this is the system where I will upload my bomb. And then here on port 8084, there's another dependency-track instance. And you can see it also has like no projects yet, and it also has no tags yet. So if I now send this request and the demo gods are with me, I get a token back, which means the bomb upload was successful. Let me just zoom in here. So again, going to the first system and refreshing the project page here. the BOM was uploaded successfully. And if I now go to my second instance, I should see the same. It has been uploaded successfully and the tags, etc. are all set. It's all in the same version and the same BOM obviously was forwarded. Yeah, and this is pretty much it. It's quite simple to set up. And if you just want to test something out, be it Hades, be it a newer Dependency-Track version, or be it a snapshot version, this is a real good way to get started and to not cause any impact on your production system. Yeah, I think that's pretty much it. Let me stop sharing this again. And yep. Alrighty, then the next person, I think Steve, you're going to talk about CycloneDX, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So as of late June, I think it was June 26th was the day the Ecma General Assembly met in Geneva, and it was unanimous that CycloneDX was ratified as an international standard. So lots of folks to thank for that. It was a huge milestone for the project and for all of the tools and other projects that actually rely on CycloneDX, including Dependency-Track. The actual paper or the PDF version of that standard should be available on the Ecma website probably within a week, I would imagine. I know the staff at Ecma International is just cleaning up a few minor things before they publish. But expect that to be on the website soon. Also on the website will be on tc54.org if you want to follow along with the technical community within Ecma. The tc54.org website will be updated probably in a week's time as well. We're waiting for Ecma to release their documentation, but of importance is the formation of a couple different new task groups within TC54. We have a task group specifically for the Transparency Exchange API, which is really about how you share bills of materials and other types of supply chain artifacts and intelligence. And then we've got a task group for package URL. The task group for Perl, we're going to be looking at standardizing, making Perl an international standard. We're going to be looking at making VERS, which is the version range specification, also an international standard. So this is some really, really important work. So the standardization of 1.6, that's just the first of many standards that are going to come out of TC54. For anyone involved or wants to get involved in this, obviously all of Cyclone, all of Perl, etc., it's all community based, right? None of that changes. Three major important things that are going at the CycloneDX 1.7 is support for what we term as blueprints. Blueprints incorporates two different things. One, it incorporates the concept of architectural bill of materials, right? How is a software or system architected? And two, the other aspect of blueprints is what is its behavior, right? A bill of behaviors or a BOB. And we plan to be able to describe what a software or system should do versus what it's actually doing. And obviously, when you can have that capability, all kinds of really interesting use cases are possible. Two other things of importance that are coming in 1.7 is support for OSS sustainability. So when I'm envisioning a future where in Dependency-Track version 5. whatever, you'll ingest a bill of material. And if you find that you are really relying on some particular open source project, you can find out, the sustainability of that project. You could potentially look at it from a risk perspective, but you could also, if you are using that project a lot in your enterprise, think about maybe contributing back because it's providing a lot of business value to you. So providing that level of visibility, I think, is going to be important for the continued sustainability of open source. And the third and final thing, major thing that's going into 1.7 is support for threat modeling bill of material. The entire threat modeling industry, including the individuals, the companies, and the open source projects that really encompass both security and privacy threat modeling, have all come together in championing CycloneDX as kind of the standard to be able to describe threats, countermeasures, etc., in a bill of materials type format. So this is going to be really interesting for applications like Dependency-Track, which has historically focused purely on vulnerabilities. Well, now there's the potential to look at other types of risk, not just trailing indicators, but maybe some leading indicators of risk too, including potential threats. So if you are interested in some of these use cases, I would highly encourage everyone to get involved in the CycloneDX community, create tickets within the Dependency-Track project, maybe to express some of these future use cases. Ultimately, we would love Dependency-Track to be able to support all the things that CycloneDX is going to bring to the table. And with that, pull requests are very appreciated. But that's it for CycloneDX 1.6. CycloneDX 1.7 is also going to be targeted as an Ecma international standard. And we are also going to try to get this ISO standard as well. So thanks, Nicholas. I'll pass it back to you.
Well, thanks so much for the great update, Steve. Thanks so much. Yes, I think we are already at the Q&A part of this session. So if anyone has questions, please fire them out now.
Looks like there's one in the chat from Melba. Are you planning on incorporating Threat Dragon output to the threat modeling BOM?
Yeah, so the Threat Dragon, folks, which is, if you don't know what Threat Dragon is, it's actually a really good OWASP project, very simple to get started with threat modeling. It's mostly based on Stride in terms of data flow diagrams and that sort of thing. It's quite nice. We've actually been talking to the threat modeling folks. They're actually going to be participating in the development of that standard, as well as Kim Woots, who's the creator of the Linden privacy threat modeling standard, Adam Shostak, who's the inventor of Stride. Bunch of other folks and companies and open source projects are kind of coming to the table to make this possible. Side note, my team at ServiceNow actually contributed back to the OWASP Threat Dragon project support for OTM, or the Open Threat Modeling format. OTM is great as a more of a short-term solution. Unfortunately, OTM is there's a lot of things missing from OTM, and it would really require a complete rewrite of the OTM specification in order to do all the things that we want to do with threat modeling. But for the time being, you can use the OTM export in Threat Dragon. That will actually allow you to have interoperability between like Threat Dragon and maybe even commercial products like Davichi or Erius Risk.
Great, thank you. I think there was a question further up in the chat on the conversation of the tag management. I think it was a suggestion for use case of ACL of tag creation, and it could be derived input from GitHub.
I'm not sure I understand the question fully. Does anyone else grasp what is meant by that?
In my perspective, it seems like maybe like having access control and maybe some types of users would be able to create tags and another subset would be able to use them. Or a set of pre-created tags.
It's a question from Matt, right? The Caroline. Yeah, I think so. Yeah. When I read it, I also felt like it's more like related to Sean's question about limiting the who can create the tag. Like maybe there may be an advanced permission model where tag creation can be done by particular service account or something, or account, right? Like which may be taking it from GitHub and populating that tag, but others can just use the tag. So you don't, you have a same tags across multiple systems, right? Like, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's
Got
what.
it. Okay. Thank you. That makes a lot of sense. Yes. So maybe to explain a bit why So I explained there's a new tag management permission, right? And the tag management permission is only for deleting tags right now. The reason for this being that tag creation has historically been possible with just the portfolio management permission. So if we now change that model to requiring a different permission for the same action, that would be a breaking change. It's like backward compatibility issue. We could do it, but then we would break users' workflows. Possibly something to change in version 5, where we don't have to worry about as much about the backward compatibility. But yeah, that's why it is right now that way in version 4. Mark, you are raising your hand.
Yeah, just one thing on the tags. I think that we've had the demo and people are going to get that into their hands in the upcoming release 4.12. I think then people will then, in playing with it, will find all sorts of use cases come to mind, which will then kick off a conversation. And all I can say is, then who knows what might be possible in the future, but it requires people to say, hey, this is great, but I want something more, and log an issue for it. The original reason why I raised my hand was that there was actually one thing that we were going to have on the agenda today, and this was just a brief encouragement to people to actually contribute to Dependency-Track in multiple different ways, depending on their interest, skill level, aptitudes, whatever you want to call it. Am I not right, fellow panelists?
I think so. Do you want to take the chance to elaborate?
Okay, what it is basically everyone is welcome at the table. We've had some really amazing contributions from people writing code, and Dependency-Track is so much better for that. But everyone can contribute in small ways, be it to documentation, addition of FAQ items, providing suggestions for translations. There is, so what we'd like to do is encourage people to say there is nothing that is too small where people can't be useful, no matter what their sort of level of technical expertise. We as a team believe that everyone can help out. Right, that's me.
Yep, thanks for that reminder. I was supposed to create a slide, but I forgot. But thanks for elaborating on that, yep.
Maybe just quickly here before I forgot, but I can add something to the contribution, since we were mentioned c-scrm before, and I actually forgot to mention it at that point, but we started adding c-scrm support to Dependency-Track. It will be a little bit of work still ahead there, but we started with that, and we see there a light at the end of the tunnel, I would say. So yeah, at one point there will be support for c-scrm in Dependency-Track in hiatus actually. So yeah, hope it will be sooner than later, but we try our best.
Thanks so much. By the reactions, you can tell everyone is looking forward to seeing that in the flash. Yep.
I think what people are thinking about is that they need to go and rewatch your demo of having systems side by side, so that they can actually get hiatus up and running as soon as possible, so that when the c-scrm integration is available, they get to test it on day one.
Yep.
This is just part of the 1.6 integration, right? I mean, what we did in Hiatus was to change the Sonar plugin to the newest version such that it supports 1.6, and then get the converter right and get the internal model right to at least persist the CBOM information. But there is more in terms of differences between 1.4 and 1.6 that deserve attention.
There's a lot more.
Yeah.
Yep.
There is a question from Sean. Not sure anyone.
Okay, I'll read it. Yep. Regarding alerts and notifications feeding downstream systems or workflows, etc., what are users doing to handle failed dropped notifications? If notifications go missing for whatever reason, then that potentially means people aren't notified of vulnerabilities when they should be. How are people managing this risk? Great question. I can give an answer to that. At the moment, you are right. The technical term would be delivery guarantees, right? Delivery guarantees can be at least once, at most once, and exactly once. And at the moment, the delivery guarantees of the notifications and dependency track are at most once. Or yeah, because the notification is sent pretty much in a, sorry, Melba? Okay, just by accident, okay. So the notification is either sent or it is dropped, right? So there's no in between at the moment. The way it will change is in Hades, I can say. We are like sending notifications not directly to the destination, but we are sending it to Kafka first, and Kafka then the like notification publisher, we call it, can pick it up, then send it to the final destination. And if that fails, it can simply retry whatever is in Kafka, right? And you can even like attach your own listeners to it, that Kafka topic, and consume from there, depending on your needs. The bottom line being notifications are no longer lost as soon as they are sent in the next version. As for how people can deal with it right now, you will probably need some additional infrastructure. You could, for example, use Bento, which we showed earlier for the notification mapping between system A and system B for like sending the bomb via notification. You can do the same to buffer notifications there. And Bento has like retry mechanisms that you can leverage, retry and batching. But otherwise, yeah, that's a notification. That's a functionality whole in Dependency-Track version 4 that notifications are at most once. I hope that answers your question. If not, please feel free to follow up on it.
I think Melba got an update how they are doing it. Like,
yeah, that's why I was raising my hand. I wasn't trying to interrupt. Sorry, Nicholas. So one of the things I'm pretty sure, and Caroline, correct me if I'm wrong, that we do is we actually do a query, right, to DT, right? So we don't necessarily rely on the notifications, right? Because oftentimes there might be a new vulnerability or something like that, right? So we try to pull as much as we can to get kind of an update. So we're not necessarily relying on that notification per se that something is updated. We just refresh, if that makes any sense.
yeah, I think that's a good approach. I mean, it's a similar to like any drift management, right? Like all this asynchronous communication. When you get notification loss, you may want to cross check and verify what is in your source system. Is it your updated? So as we have all the data in the rest, so we can, like as Melba mentioned, we can do that drift reconciliation or whatever, like, and figure it out if you have a drift or if you miss any notification and things like that. Like, yeah.
Okay, Sean says, yep, sounds like the kind of approach to take for X, Kafka supporting DLQs and retries, etc. will be a great improvement through Hades. Thanks. Thanks, Sean, for your question. Yep.
Does anyone else have any other questions before we wrap it up? Great discussion so far.
If not, let me just say, so we, Niklas and Arvind said, or talked about their presentations at OWASP, right? But sadly, until now, the presentations have not been uploaded, neither the slides nor the videos. What we will do is we will put them into the video description and the YouTube upload as soon as they are available. And we will also put them in the slides before we upload them to the GitHub repository. So for those who don't know, there's a GitHub repository in the Dependency-Track organization. It's called just Community. And there we upload all the slides that we use in all the community meetings. So you will find links to those talks as well when you check there.
Fantastic. It looks like there's a question from Sean. Any rough estimate for a 4.12 release?
Oh no, I was fearing that question. There's no rough estimate. You can check the milestone in GitHub. There are still quite a few open things we want to get into 4.12. As always, if we find it's taking too long to implement them, we may just throw a few things out and release sooner. But there is no, yeah, thanks Bino for sharing the links. There is no tentative date right now.
Right. Anything else? Okay. Well, I think we can wrap it up. Oh,
There is one thing just to say
sure.
that I mentioned earlier about sort of how awesome it would be if people can get Hyades running side by side with Dependency-Track 4.x. But the same also applies to getting 4.12 snapshot running alongside your existing 4.11. Because if it allows you to find one problem in that snapshot, which can then be fixed before release, or simply feedback to say this is working absolutely perfect, that in itself helps bring forward the release of 4.12 and any subsequent release as well.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Great. Well, yes, definitely thank you to the community. We always are appreciative of everything you do. And as Mark has said earlier, contributions are greatly appreciated, both technical and non-technical. So we can probably dive into that in a future meeting as well. So thank you everyone for coming. On the way out again, make sure to fill out the survey so you can tell us what you think, if you'd like us to do a demo on a certain area or maybe a certain feature, or discuss anything that you'd like. This is good feedback for us to plan a future meeting. And yeah, thank you everyone for coming, and I think we'll wrap it up here. Thank you. Let's stop the recording.